You know, I love the history of deer hunting and the nostalgicness of deer hunting. And, you know, there was a time where if you wanted to hunt deer, you went up in the woods. This is kind of what this reminds me of. It's just kind of a deer camp situation where you go in, you've got great food, great friendships. You come in at the end of the day and you talk about your day and you just sit out in these woods all day long. And it's very therapeutic. That's a big buck. Well, it's a beautiful morning. Sun's coming up through the bush here. And you've been pretty quiet all day since, so we're just getting comfortable and waiting. But you know, this bush is so thick you can't see past 35 yards, 40 yards at the most. But we're comfortable. It's a beautiful morning. Just wait for the deer to move.
It's November 2nd. The rut should be kicking in nicely. This far north, they got a little skip of snow the other day. Still a little bit on the ground, which helps with visibility. I mean, the cover we're hunting is very thick. You can't see very far. So we're located in the Interlake region of central Manitoba. We offer walleye fishing, black bear hunting, waterfowl hunting, and white-tailed deer. So a lot of the areas we are hunting are heavily forested areas with very thick underbrush. And then around those areas is a lot of marshland. So we're really located between these two big lakes, and there's a lot of marsh, and then there's what we call a ridge in Manitoba, which is like 4 feet higher than the other ground around it, that's covered with trees and heavy brush. It's got a lot of cover for the deer, it's got a lot of food for the deer, there's browse everywhere. The deer stay out there, they don't really have to move from that area all year round. Deer's been just making all sorts of racket back there. It's gotta be a buck. Give him a little grunt call. Here comes a deer. Pretty good action this morning. In the vastness of this forest, that's about the best decoy you can have. Young buck chasing a doe. Just a matter of time before Mr. Big shows up.
We are Harvest Lodge on the Waterhen River. We're in Waterhen, Manitoba, which is a village of about 200 people. And we have hunting and fishing and cabin rentals. What's unique about our area is that our lodge is right on a river with amazing walleye fishing. And so our hunters are able to come and hunt whatever species they're hunting, whether that be deer or bear or waterfowl. And then most often they can also fish while they're here when they're not hunting. So that's kind of a unique thing to our place.
We're only about 4 hours north of the US border. So pretty easy driving distance for most folks from the upper Midwest. The big thing about the white-tailed deer here that I love is that we're hunting in the wilderness. So we're out in wilderness, doesn't get a lot of traffic. In fact, really hardly any traffic. Usually I'm about the only person that's out there other than our hunters and our guide, Clayton. And so, you know, a lot of times these deer maybe you've never even seen a person until we're out there hunting. So not a lot of hunting pressure. They've got time to grow up and get mature, and that's the really neat thing about here. We never really know exactly what's gonna show up. You can get some bucks that are repeat visitors to an area, and then all of a sudden you'll have this monster show up that you've never even seen him before. And so that's what's exciting, is just the unknown. Like it's gonna be exciting, and it's gonna be something new every day.
I do all the cooking for our hunting guests. It's part of their package. I like to cook, and I love to cook the fish and the birds and deer and bear for you while you're here too, which is kind of a fun experience if you've never tried some of that wild game, or maybe you haven't tried it in a different way that I might cook it. So it's always fun to share recipes and have that time together around the table as friends and telling the stories of how the hunts went that day and what you saw, and you know, of course, ribbing each other lightly, because that's fun too.
Well, it's another beautiful morning here in Manitoba. We're in a new spot. We're set up along this really long marsh type area. It runs for miles and miles north and south. And what they're telling me is that these deer, as they're kind of migrating south to the farmland, the cropland, they'll run the edges of these marshes. So there's a couple really good beat down trails 50 to 100 yards away. So that's where we'll really be focusing our attention throughout the day, hoping that one of these giant northern Manitoba bucks comes walking by.
So I hear these deer walking around in the thicket in front of me, and it must have been 10-15 minutes, and then finally I caught one with the binoculars, and sure enough, it's a doe and it's a fawn.
Doe and a fawn. Man, they've been making noise back there for a while. Oh, that's good. Buck. I hear a buck grunting.
And it wasn't a couple minutes later I heard that grunt coming from the same direction that she came from. So he's back there making all sorts of noise, and all of a sudden I hear him stop. And what I'm thinking is going on, he's trying to listen to where that doe went. Yes, he can smell, but he wants to pinpoint where she is right now. And she's standing 15 yards beside my tree stand, and she takes a couple little steps, and immediately that buck starts to come in a little closer. So I slowly reach over and grab the muzzle loader and get ready.
He's following that doe. Does it right there.
So the doe's over there, she's pretty much got me pegged. I'm ready. I'm just waiting to see where he's gonna come. Is he gonna come to the right of the stand? Is he gonna follow directly behind her? And he eventually peeks his head out of the thicket, and all I see is mass. I'm like, all right, you know, here's a good, mature buck. Exactly what we're waiting for here in Manitoba.
Rip.
There he goes, he's down. Oh my gosh, shaking like a leaf. That was absolutely crazy. I had this doe and fawn. They were back there for like an hour. And they finally came in right in front of me. And so it kind of had me pegged. And all of a sudden I hear this buck back there just bellowing away. He was grunting, snort wheezing. And I figured, I can't spook this doe because he's probably following her trail. And I knew exactly where she came across, and he pretty much committed. And man, I mean, he got to, I don't know, 20 yards. And I couldn't take it anymore. I said, that is a great buck. And so I took the safety off and squeezed the trigger. He didn't run maybe 50 yards, and I saw him topple over, so I'll give him a few minutes, but I can't wait to get my hands on that buck. What a hunt, man. I can't imagine what this hunt is like with some snow, but it's pretty nerve-wracking and fun when you can hear them back in this brush and you don't know what they are, and then they show up, and oh man, just exciting. Yes. Whoop. I think I see a white belly. Yeah, he didn't go. Wow. Less than 50 yards. Wow. Look at the body on that deer. That is crazy. Look at this buck. Oh man. What a dark horned northern Manitoba buck. I mean, a deer this side's probably 4 years old up here. I mean, they definitely get bigger, but boy, he came in, put on a show. He was definitely king of the woods this morning, grunting and following that doe. And man, the body on these, unbelievable. I'm definitely not dragging this out by myself. Glad we were able to come into Canada again this year and get on this deer hunt. All right.
We've got the blind set up. Why don't you describe the spot, Clayton?
Yeah, this is we got the big swamp on this side. It's not frozen yet, and we got the swamp on this side. The deer don't like crossing when it's not frozen, so this is a good high ridge for them to walk through.
See, they've been really using it. The tracks all over the place.
Yeah, and they were like funneling through this area. They got feed on that side, and they come and bed down.
Hey, let me ask you this, because a lot of people don't like hunting out of a ground blind. Mm-hmm. They think the deer see it and they gotta hide it and all this kind of stuff. But you guys use ground blinds a lot, and you move them around a lot to play the wind.
Yeah.
And And I think that's something important to point out, is that these deer see a ground blind. They don't know what it is.
No, they don't.
It hides your movement, keeps
Yeah.
you warm. So it's a very effective. You guys use ground blinds a lot, and I find that pretty interesting because some people don't like to use them. I think they're missing out.
Yeah. It's good to sit in them, especially when it's cold like this, and you can stay out of the wind, and
Yeah,
all day sits keeps you nice.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about it being out ahead of time. You can pop it up the day you hunt.
Yep. Take it out.
All right, well, we'll get settled in here.
Yep.
We'll see you tonight, hopefully with good news.
Yeah. Right on.
Oh, we're back up in Manitoba here. It's the deer rifle season. And it's almost Thanksgiving, so it's, I guess we call the last week of the rifle season. And goodness, it's really different from earlier. There's snow on the ground. The deer definitely herded up more. And we're just getting settled in here, first day of our hunt. But there are deer tracks all over in the snow. A lot of these routes and these travel corridors really make sense when you put some snow on the ground. Definitely see where they've been moving. There's a couple of fish scrapes up in front of us here, so looks like a good spot.
You look at Canada and you look at Canadian whitetail hunting in particular, Alberta gets a lot of attention, Saskatchewan gets a lot of attention. I'm not sure why Manitoba doesn't come up on the radar of more deer hunters. It might be because there's no baiting in Manitoba. If you ever hunt in Saskatchewan, for example, you're hunting over alfalfa bales and it's all day sits, and you're hunting over some type of bait in the woods in a lot of cases. Especially during the rut, it's not like these bucks are keyed in on a food source, they're just chasing does. And there's a lot of natural pinch points. You'll find scrape lines and rub lines and just natural corridors and travel routes that run through these swamps where you can really see a lot of deer and have a really excellent chance of shooting one with a rifle. These opportunities are really a diamond in the rough. Not a lot of people know about them, but I think there's some tremendous opportunities. There's some tremendous big buck potential. What's really cool about this is that you just never know what day it's going to happen. You never know when it's going to happen. But if you sit in these woods long enough, there's an opportunity for it to happen.
Oh, there's a buck chasing them. That's a big buck. Oh, that's a good buck. Oh my. Yes. Oh. That is a Manitoba swamp buck. Oh. He was really hunched up. He went down. Am I looking at a deer right there? Oh my! That deer went maybe 40 yards from where I shot him. Wow! This is worth coming to Manitoba for. Look at that! Wow! Look at that. That's just cool. Just look at this. Isn't that cool? Boy, look at the mass. Just a big old Manitoba swamp buck. And like many big bucks, he was chasing does. That was just demising. It happens so quick, and that's what's so fun about hunting sometimes is, we've been sitting there all morning, hadn't seen a deer. And all of a sudden, 3 does come running through. They barely stopped in front of us, and then right behind, a short while later, this guy came cruising through. He was moving so fast. I mean, by the time that we got the camera on him, we shot. Man, oh man. He didn't go far. Just a great buck. Wow, I am just pleased. I'm just so happy that everything worked out. Boy, this buck was just laying right out of sight. One of the things that was so fun about hunting up here is that you're in these big woods, you know that there's big deer around, and you don't know what they're gonna look like yet. There's no deer that are named, for example. There's no history. There's no, pictures to look at and, trying to figure out if the deer that's in your binos is the deer that you've got a trail cam pick of. There's really none of that. All there are tracks all over in the snow. And there's a kind of a mystique or a mysteriousness where every time you go in the woods, you don't know what's gonna happen that I think sometimes we miss out on as hunters. It definitely kind of opened up my eyes to that up here, is that, sometimes you just have to sit all day and stare into these woods and let that therapeutic side of hunting come through, where it's the mystery and the wonder. What's going to show up next? What's the next deer going to look like? How big of a buck are you going to see? And that unknown, I tell you what, in today's world is really refreshing.